For the kind welcome and thanks for having me. Very helpful. So, as Ola, Anita, and Michael just mentioned, Otto Group is often said to be something like the world champion of digital transformation. I will leave it to others to judge if we are really a world champion, but one thing is certain. Even after decades of digital disruption in fashion and in retail more general than fashion, Otto Group is still large, with about 14 billion euro in revenue and more than 50,000 employees, has a lot of brands, and is for sure digital at heart. But also for Otto Group, it's unclear what lies ahead, and it's very important to, as I said in the title of my talk, keep moving to stay fit for the future. So I want to spend the next 10 minutes talking a little bit and sharing a few thoughts on how to transform, how to digitize a behemoth, an incumbent, established retail company like Otto Group. And I've tried to structure my thoughts into a couple of sections. The first one being very, very simple. If you're a successful, established company and you want to stay with the digital wave, you want to, even in 10 or 20 years, still belong to the winners, you need to start early. When you're with a back to the wall, you won't have the stamina needed to carry a company through a huge transformation. And fortunately, Otto Group started very, very early. And I can brag about this without being unpolite because I'm only there for 18 months. And this started like 25 years ago. And mostly thanks to the entrepreneurial foresight of Michael Otto, who is like the owner of the company, who pushed in the 90s, who pushed his organization to tackle this challenge called the internet. By then, the executives didn't know what it was. They tell stories about it, how they were like challenged to make the company digital ready and didn't know what it was. Yeah? So there were very early websites, fancy stuff. Yeah? Item number 2. I think one of the most common misconceptions about digital among corporate executives is that digital is something almost magical. That all these entrepreneurs out there are like wizards and they do stuff only the initiated can do. So if you're a corporate executive, you might feel like, hey, you have to get initiated and then you'll be able to do it as well. And then things will just fall in place and work out almost magically, also for you. I don't believe this at all. There is no silver bullet in digital, in digitization, and in digital transformation. Most of all, it's heavy lifting, hard work, right? So let me illustrate this a little to you. Please, everyone think of a digital company you are afraid of. For many of you, this might be Amazon. For some of you, this might be a startup next door who just got crazy high funding. No matter which company you're thinking right now, I tell you one thing I'm very, very certain about. One thing, those guys are a threat to your business. One reason, one of the main reasons they are a threat to your business is they just execute better. Chances are they are much more relentless in focusing on the customer. Chances are they have the better technology setup and can adapt and introduce new features and new stuff just faster than you can. And chances even are they are more lean, they are more cost efficient and more aggressive when it comes to streamlining their organization. So executing your core business like hell is a key pillar of any successful digital transformation. This will pay the bills. And this will, in that sense, fund your digital journey. So we invest a lot of time and management attention in Otto Group in doing just that. And I can tell you, in this like big bucket of executing like hell and funding your digital journey, there is stuff you will love and your teams will love. For example, you have to stay like on par with the technological development. So what we did last year, when Google introduced their new AR Core technology, we became one of the pilot partners and built one of the first apps that used AR Core, right? It's part of the core business. This is like a fashion business attached to Otto.de, right? And this was fun, yeah, Mobile World Congress, Google I/O, a lot of press, yeah, like the teams celebrating, great fun. This is one part of it, but there's also parts
not so much fun. Your teams will hate it. Maybe you will even hate it yourselves as executives, right? Like, this chart is a tracking template, most boring stuff on earth. This is made to make sure we can kick people's butt so that they deliver what they have promised. Yeah. So there's a ton of operational excellence projects going on, like in the sense of, hey, we have process X, and now it takes us end-to-end 24 man-days. And can't we do it in 6 and at the same time improve quality? Everybody who's done that kind of stuff knows it's not fun in the day-to-day sense of the word. Once you've done it, it's fun because it seriously improves your bottom line, right? And this kind of stuff is a key pillar of digital transformation. It's not fancy, it's not agile, it's nothing you might dream about, but it's the way it works, right? But now comes the real sad news. Even if you do all this, what I just talked about, that's not enough. Even if you're like the most operationally excellent, undifferentiated multi-brand retailer of the universe, you will still die. Because the time for undifferentiated multi-brand retailers who just buy stuff in bulk, put it on the website or on the shelf and wait for people to buy, the time has passed. It's just gone. Other business models are just better. So disruption is real. Even if it takes longer than most people expect, disruption is real. So on top of executing like hell and getting the funds to actually afford your journey, you have to search for new value and find new value. And basically, there's 2 ways of doing this. One is investing into stuff, and the other one is building stuff, right? And we've been doing both for quite a while already. Like, these are the logos of 2 venture capital firms. And both firms, eVentures and Project A, when they issued their first generation of funds, Otto Group was the sole limited partner, the sole investor in these funds. But even if we held 100% of the capital invested, we never claimed a right to interfere with the investment decision. This is what I usually call the paradox of corporate venture capital. If you want to get value from corporate venture capital, you have to give up control. Otherwise, all you get is adverse selection, and you get all the founders and entrepreneurs who are not like courageous and bold enough to go for real VC money. So we put a lot of money, yeah, several $100 million over the years, but we never took control, right? It works beautifully, right? A, it pays back a lot of money, and B, it gives us a lot of like contact, leads, people, ideas, technologies from the venture capital world. Second, we build stuff ourselves whenever it makes sense. Whenever we think of a business model we don't want to invest in to optimize for an exit valuation, but where we think this is a business model we want to keep, it has a strategic value for Otto Group, we build it ourselves. For this purpose, we have a company builder called OGDS, Otto Group Digital Solutions. Those folks are building B2B business models along our value chain. So if you're in fashion e-commerce, check out Risk Ident, Collect AI, ODC. At least one of these might be appropriate for you, maybe even all 3, right? So I do a little sales here on the side. It's always good to do a little sales, right? And then we don't only build B2B businesses, we also build B2C businesses. So I guess since you're all at FASHIONTECH today, you all know what About You is, right? Fastest growing fashion company in Europe right now, maybe even in the world, depending on which statistics you look at. Last year just took an external investor at $1 billion valuation. So this is going beautifully. This kind of stuff is the most tricky one, right? Building like a real startup that scales in B2C words or terms. This is very tricky. It costs a lot of money. That's the reason we don't do 10 of these at a time. And it's very, very important you get the setting right so that you can attract and motivate real entrepreneurs and it doesn't get like killed in the corporate turmoil. So starting early, funding the journey by executing like hell and finding new value. One piece is missing. Why is one piece missing? Because to get all this right is very hard for any organization. Even the best run organization will have a tough time. Why? Because there are so many contradictory elements in it. You have to be very, very fast, but then you have to have the stamina and stick to it over a marathon distance. On the one hand, you have to like focus on operational excellence and squeeze every $1,000 you can squeeze out of your core business. And then you have to invest hundreds of millions courageously into new risky businesses. So the key to get these contradictions reconciled and to get your organization to execute this kind of transformation is culture. It's all about the culture. The most tricky and the most vital part of any digital transformation is tackling your culture. And often people say culture is an implicit element. I don't know how to address it, and I can tell you, you can address it. We as Otto Group, almost 3 years ago, a program was started that deals with cultural change. And one element, I just mentioned one element because time's up, is we as an executive board assign one full working day every month to deal with cultural issues. Yeah? We'll have people from all levels of the organization come and talk about cultural things. We'll define topics that we want to push. All this in order to build a culture that rewards performance, right, and rewards smart risk-taking and balances all these apparent contradictions you need to reconcile in order to drive through a successful digital transformation. So that's my takeaway. I think I only ran over 10 seconds. And I thank you very much for your attention and looking forward to I think, albeit brief discussion.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. If you have any questions for Sebastian, then please just raise your hand and you can ask the questions with this microphone. I would have one first to you. I think you should speak into that. You must get a tremendous amount of new ideas for business models onto your table every day. How do you judge whether you want to really follow a path versus not following it and just putting it ad acta?
It really depends on which part of the organization you talk about. The venture capitalists get most of the deal flow from VC-like businesses, and they look at it the same way every VC does. Yeah? So they have a very cold-hearted, I will say no 99% of the time approach. For me personally, if it's about things in the core business, I don't really differentiate much if it's a huge established tech behemoth or it's a tiny startup. I just try to figure out quickly, will this differentiate us in the market with respect to our customers? This is the key selection factor, I think, for any technology you think of integrating in your business. Technology is not an end in itself, but it always needs to be thought from the customer perspective.
So it's all about the USP and the value it creates for your customer.
Yeah, it's about a USP in terms of messaging. It's about improving a customer journey and customer experience, this kind of stuff.
So how many percentage of the path or of the journey in digitization you've already taken when it comes to transforming your whole organization?
Yeah, that's tricky to say because it's a moving target, right? So the industry is moving so fast that there is no finishing line, I believe. I mean, the good news is we've survived in an industry where almost everyone else has folded. So you could say, step one, we're done, can put a big green check mark. And I'd say in terms of cultural transformation, I'd say we're about half through it, gut feeling. This is very hard to quantify, but gut feeling would be roughly 50%.
And what are the biggest challenges in transforming the culture of your organization?
It's a huge organization. It's more than 50,000 people. And so we have people coming from startup companies who are used to taking responsibility very early on, full throttle. And we have people working in warehouses who are also a very important part and who deliver a very important part of our customer experience. And to bring all these different roles and perspectives and walks of life even onto a joint vision and to give them something they believe in and they execute towards, I think it's a challenging but also very rewarding task.
You've already mentioned that you allocate one day within your management team per month for the cultural transformation. What are other activities that you do in order to increase the speed?
What's very important to increase speed, I think, is to use hierarchy as a tool where it's useful and to get rid of it where it blocks, right? Hierarchy is not a bad thing in itself. And if you look for the most hierarchical organizations in the world, probably next to military and hospitals, it's tech companies. Yeah? So this myth of tech companies are always flat and free of hierarchies is a lie. But you need to use hierarchy smartly. It's not like, yeah, if you only have a hammer in your toolbox, you will crash a light bulb, right? So you have to make sure ideas can bubble up freely, communication can flow freely, while at the same time decision paths are clear, right? And this is, I think, usually the biggest blocker for increasing speed in huge organizations, that people are not really confident what they can't do, and that hierarchy gets in the way, and then decisions aren't taken where it's needed, right?
And how do you take away the fear from the people?
Well, I think it's a very good question, because it's in the end, getting rid of hierarchy is getting rid of fear, right? And I think this can only be done in personal contact. I think what's very important is that you stop, and I think we're doing a decent job in that, but of course our people would have to tell. That you stop just communicating through the layers of an org chart, but that you start giving people a voice, yeah, and start giving people an opportunity to talk to the management, to talk outside of their silos and so on. Because once people talk like among human beings, it gets fairly obvious there's no reason to be afraid of, right? And so just getting in touch, yeah, and investing time to be in touch with your organization, I think it sounds very simple, but it's the best driver to get rid of fear in the orga.
One last question. What's the most important, also most fun project you look forward to in 2019?
I'm not sure if both fall together. So I think the most important project we're looking this year is basically to continue our business model transformation of our flagship asset, Otto.de, right? Coming from, in ancient history, catalog mail order, now a big e-commerce player going to more of a marketplace, a platform business, monetizing a lot on services. That's on a very good way, but still a lot of work to do, probably most important. The thing I personally probably look forward to most is working with About You and their further scaling. I have to say, I love working with that founder team. I love the energy of a business that is on such a fast scaling path. That's just like a lovely thing to do.
Great. Thank you very much, Sebastian Klauke.
Thanks.
Danke.